Abu al-Baghdadi is dead.
Like a dog.
I love that. Shane Gillis clip. Like,
we love Shane Gillis.
Yeah.
If Shane Gillis ever listened to this podcast, it would be the happiest day of my life.
Yes. Maybe one day.
Maybe one day. I think he would like us.
Yeah, I think so. Well, we got
he's a big football guy.
Yeah.
We should get him on.
We got a loyal following. We got 25 people. If Shane Gillis were to join the show, we'd probably turn that into 25 or 250,000.
Easily.
All watching for Shane Gillis, not us. But anyway, this is the AFC North preview. We are down to 2 divisions left in our preview series. Finishing up with the North divisions in the AFC and the NFC. NFC will be next week. I think both the AFC North and the NFC North are the most interesting in the NFL. Would you agree?
Yeah, well, the AFC North is going to be the division-led, what's it called? Why am I blanking on it right now? What's the HBO show?
Hard Knocks.
Hard Knocks. They're the division Hard Knocks this year.
Yeah. And I think, and that makes a lot of sense because you got, I think, really 4 compelling teams. And I think any 4 of these teams have a legit argument to win.
And you know what? They hate each other. And that's what football should be. They should hate each other.
Well, and the other thing is so the Packers and the Bears and the Vikings and the Lions, everybody refers to the NFC North as the black and blue division.
Mm-hmm.
But it ain't black and blue. I'm sorry, because 2 of our teams play on carpet.
Yeah.
And inside.
And 3 of the teams are going to be really big pass up. Well, they're kind of known for their offense, I think, moving forward.
Yeah, this division is always tight, it feels like, and it varies year to year who wins it. We have had a different division winner. I mean, really, going back to 2016, every team of the Browns has won it, and the Browns are one of the more compelling rosters in this division. Mike Tomlin's won a Super Bowl. John Harbaugh's won a Super Bowl. Zach Taylor has gotten to the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
And I like Kevin Stefanski. So all the way around, this, to me, I don't see a bad team.
No,
I see a different tier level. Yeah, and we'll start at the top of the tier. And I think you and I both agree the top of the tier in the AFC North, the king and the king last year are the Baltimore Ravens.
Yep.
John Harbaugh's back. He's been here nearly 2 decades at this point. Last year was a huge success. Todd Monken comes in, replaces Greg Roman. They go from one of the league's more archaic offenses. They're almost running, it felt like, the triple option at times. They started airing it out more. Lamar Jackson is unlocked. He wins the MVP. They host an AFC Championship game. I mean, it only came down because they played their worst game of the season at the worst time. In the AFC title game against a team that basically, if you show any weakness, they'll kill you. And that was Kansas City. I think this team just got better this offseason, if anything. And I liked the addition of Derrick Henry. I think that's going to be really
super fun.
Because, I mean, they're already so hard to stop on the ground with the threat of Lamar. Mm-hmm. And what he can do with his legs. And Lamar's a really good passer. Don't let anybody tell you he's just a mobile quarterback. But this team has weapons at every level of the field. Zay Flowers is a really good screen receiver. Mark Andrews is a really, really good tight end that can play the intermediate part of the field. He's versatile. Likely is also really good as a second tight end. Their offensive line's been really solid. And Bateman has been disappointing for them, but he's still one of those players that, he had a very talented college profile, and maybe it can hit. But ultimately, I love the Derrick Henry addition to this team, because what I think it's going to do is I think it's going to unlock Lamar. I think he's going to have his best season since 2019 this year. it'll be weird because we haven't had a back-to-back MVP in a few years since Aaron Rodgers last did it.
Yeah.
But I think, like, if I were a betting man, I actually think Lamar Jackson winning back-to-back MVP is in play, just because the way I see this offense, I think year 2 under Monken, I think will be better than year 1. And I like what Henry's going to bring to this offense in terms of efficiency, because it's going to open up so much more downfield for Lamar as a passer. He didn't throw that many touchdowns last year. I really like the way this team is built. I don't think there's really that much to complain about. The only question for Baltimore is, can they beat Kansas City? That's my only question for you. Like, what do you?
I suppose. Well, it's hard to say. Kansas City has been got before.
By a team in this division.
By a team in this division. It is possible. I suppose we'll kind of go into that more when we get to our playoff kind of prediction episode.
Yep.
In a couple weeks. I mean, they kind of have to. Now we talked about the other day, last week, I forget. We were talking about the 49ers. Windows are so short in the NFL anymore, even with great quarterbacks. Buffalo's going to experience that this year. They saw that original window kind of close, and now they're going to start to reopen another one. I think might be some growing pains. Baltimore, like, with this current iteration of the team, it's got to happen sometime or later, that they get beyond them. I know, like, it's crazy that they've only met once in the playoffs with Mahomes. And am I missing a year?
Buffalo would love for it to stop, and Baltimore's only had one shot.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so I guess by kind of like the rule of it seems like Baltimore is going to take over that Buffalo slot of challenging Kansas City for the AFC title.
Yeah.
And we thought last year it meant getting home field advantage because Mahomes had never played a road playoff game, technically.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it didn't. They, like, as you said, they had their worst game of the season at the wrong time.
Yeah, I think it was kind of a bad timing thing. I think the one thing that could bring this team down is a poorly timed injury. We've seen that with this team before.
Yeah.
I mean, we saw it really in back-to-back seasons in 21 and 22.
Yeah.
Where Lamar Jackson doesn't finish the season. They make the playoffs in 22 anyway, but they lose in the wild card round with Tyler Huntley playing as the quarterback.
And they should have won that game.
Yeah. In Cincinnati, that's right. So
except for the goal line fumble.
Yeah, that was crazy. But like you have all of that's really the question is, can Lamar play a full 17 games, or at least only if you're gonna miss a game, miss like 1 or 2.
Yeah.
Don't miss time. And then I think like it's kind of weird that they just need to play back the season they just had. And I think that's actually in play. I don't love predicting teams that won 13 games to just repeat it again.
Right.
But I think if everything stays the same, I think that's easily in play. This team was historically good last year.
Mm-hmm.
They could take a step back from like a DVOA standpoint and still be a 13-win team.
Yeah.
So, like you said, the main question is, you got to get over the hump. You got to beat Kansas City somehow. And the second thing is, and I would bring up, is it all comes down to Lamar Jackson. I think he's the third most valuable player in the league behind Mahomes and Josh Allen in terms of just causation
here.
Yeah. Causation and relative to his team's chances to win. I think he's right up there with those two guys. But the one thing I love about Baltimore is just the way they build their team. Like, they have so much talent and they draft really well.
Yeah.
Like Kyle Hamilton, where they got him in the 22 draft. Awesome. I like their offensive line, the way they're just deep everywhere. There's not a lot of holes anywhere on the roster. I mean, we put their key losses as Patrick Queen and Jadeveon Clowney. Patrick Queen's a big name, but he didn't produce a lot when he was with Baltimore. And Jadeveon Clowney, another big name, but like we know he's kind of just a journeyman veteran at this point, and he's just rotating who's going to pay him. But he's just a rotational pass rusher at this point. They didn't really lose a lot of players, but they're still going to be right there. It's just contingent on his health. Any other thoughts on Baltimore before we go on?
No, yeah, just excited to see how they go about this year. They're going to be a really fun team to watch. I do like that they are. Todd Monken brought in more of a passing offense to this team. They still didn't pass the ball that up, but they were certainly much more effective. They threw the ball the third less of any team in football, and they ran the ball the most, which is the Ravens. But they were much more effective throwing the ball than they were with Greg Roman. But there's still a part of me that's like, I would like to see a Greg Roman offense with Lamar Jackson at this point in his career and Derrick Henry. I know the football millennials would say, no. Like, let's keep it going with the way it is now. But that's just like the old school, the old soul football podcast person in me that's like, oh, it'd be cool to see what kind of run fits he would have ready for this team. But
I think Derrick Henry to me is the move. Like the reason why he's such a perfect fit for this team specifically is because no team really played more from ahead than this team did last year. And Derrick Henry, like, I mean, Aaron Schatz brought it up. He's not like Derrick Henry's not necessarily like going to add a lot of like to your Pythagorean win total, right? Like he's not an analytics darling. But to me, like if you build your lead through the passing game and with Lamar scrambling, like those are the most efficient plays in your offense. Like that's going to be the first half plan. And then you just kind of like Derrick Henry's like kind of the guy you just lean on and you just break the will of the other team in the second half of a game. And that's where I really like I think, and that's going to take a lot of pressure off of Lamar and hopefully keep him healthier going into the important games,
the big months of the year.
In January, hopefully they're not going to be relying as much on Lamar's legs late in the first half or late in the second half of early games, because hopefully they'd have a lot of them already wrapped up. This team is so good. There's not really a lot to not like. The last thing I would probably add is they did lose Mike McDonald, so Zachary Orr takes over, but the Ravens have lost defensive coordinators before, and it hasn't mattered as long as John Harbaugh's been there. So I fully expect more of the same from them, probably a top 10 unit once again on that side of the ball. And their special teams have almost always been great because that's John Harbaugh's background. This is one of the, like, if I were building a team, this is usually kind of how it would turn out, I think, is the way the Ravens are built.
They're a team that people want to play with in Madden, and there's a good reason behind it.
Yep. Going to the next team on our list, the Cincinnati Bengals. Zach Taylor's back. I have never been a Zach Taylor fan, honestly, but he has proved me wrong multiple times since taking over in 2019. This is a little bit of a transition, though, because they were really bad for the first couple seasons of his tenure, but they get Joe Burrow in the draft, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, a lot of big names. And then suddenly in 2021, they kind of come out of nowhere. They make the Super Bowl, nearly win the Super Bowl, just coming up short against the Rams. In 22, they had another good season, but they come up short in the AFC title game in Kansas City in overtime. Last year was a step back, though, and I think a lot of it was due to Joe Burrow's injuries. I mean, that frankly, they kind of overachieved, to be honest.
I'd say so. They did have a wildly difficult schedule. I was actually impressed. I was never a big Zach Taylor fan in general myself.
Yeah, he's proved me wrong. Is what I'm saying. Like I didn't like him at first, but
year, I thought was his best coaching job after Burrow went down. I know they weren't playing for anything by week 18, but they gave Kansas City a hell of a game in that New Year's Eve game. And like they had that game against Minnesota, that was electric, that Saturday afternoon game.
They beat Jacksonville on Monday night when Jacksonville was still playing well.
Yep.
That was the game Trevor Lawrence got hurt in. But there were so many they showed out late in the season when Jake Browning was their starter.
Mm-hmm.
And I like a team that doesn't quit when things don't break their way. And clearly last year, things did not break their way. It didn't break their way from the start last year. I mean, in training camp, Burrow was dealing with that calf injury, right? Yeah. So, and everybody thought he like tore his Achilles at first. But he ended up being able to play through that. But later, his season did end. So we're kind of like, to me, this whole season for them, I don't love their roster that much. I think they're kind of built from the outside in. I don't normally love those type of teams that aren't really. They always have
been able to figure out that offensive line,
and that to me that's so crucial. And like if everything's equal between Baltimore and Cincinnati, like let's say both teams stay healthy. I mean, I like the Ravens a lot better as a team.
Yeah.
And it's not a coincidence. The Bengals have been good. Like the years that since Burrow and Zach Taylor have been together in Cincinnati, the years that the Bengals have been good are when years Lamar Jackson misses significant time.
Yeah.
And I think that to me, I would almost say like the qualifier for them to win the AFC North would be for Lamar Jackson to miss time.
Mm-hmm.
This team, to me, I think Joe Burrow is excellent. I think he is a really good quarterback. I like Jamar Chase. I think he's going to get paid. I think T. Higgins is going to get paid by another team soon. But they have so many questions, like you said, on that offensive line. They really have not figured that out. And then defensively, they've had a lot of turnover in the last couple of years. They've lost a lot of key free agents. It's one of those teams, I think it's in a transition, and they're going to have to kind of draft their way out of it to get back. I don't think. Are you buying or selling this team as an AFC contender? I guess it's the best question for the Bears. I'm selling. I don't think this. I think this is a playoff team, maybe, but I don't
buying them as a playoff team. I don't think
they're talented enough. I don't think they have the players.
We were talking about it in the pre-show. I like Joe Burrow a lot. I love his swagger, I guess you'd say.
His demeanor.
His demeanor. Really, he is awesome. I will say that. I think Joe Burrow might be closer to the 10th best quarterback in the league. I'm not saying he is the 10th best quarterback in the league.
Yeah.
I think he's closer to the 10th best quarterback in the league than he is to say the 3rd best quarterback in the league. And you put it, what did you call him earlier?
Oh, I said he's Matt Ryan with swag.
Matt Ryan with swag. I think that's a really good way of putting it.
And before people go like, "Oh, how dare you?" Matt Ryan was good. Okay,
like, Matt Ryan was very good. Yes,
he won an MVP. Like he should have won a Super Bowl, but Kyle Shanahan took that from him. But like
Jake Browning played better than Joe Burrow did last year.
Joe Burrow has his limitations because he is not the ultimate playmaker that Mahomes is as a passer. Yeah. He's very good, but not quite Mahomes, but he doesn't have the rushing ability that somebody like Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson have either.
And he really can't attack deep that well. I mean, like, I know there's a lot of great highlights of Jamar Chase becoming an arrow, but he's been kind of historically a low yards per attempt kind of a guy. Yeah. He's efficient, but with the injuries, and the injuries are not his fault. He can't help that. But like I said, Jake Browning did play better than and like when Jake Browning took over, everybody was like, "Oh, this season's over." And then they kind of, and I'm not saying Jake Browning should be the starter by any means. But in that small stretch of games, even by success percentage, you could look it up. he had a better season than him, and he kept the Bengals in contention late in the year. Now Burrow has been prone to produce some sort of magic come the playoffs, but even when you look at his playoff wins, like the AFC Championship game in 2021, that was as much of the Chiefs blowing it as it was the Bengals winning it. His probably his most impressive victory was against the Bills in that divisional round game.
Yeah, the following season in the snow.
Yeah, and even in that, and he didn't have to be great that day, but he was just safe that day. And he couldn't rally them to win it in Kansas City the next week. I think he's a very good quarterback. I don't think he's on the level of Mahomes, Allen.
I don't think he's good enough.
I know he's beaten them both in the playoffs. I get that, but
I don't think he's good enough to carry a bad team. And everybody, like, the Bengals are star-studded though. That's one thing you can't, because like T. Higgins is a star, Jamar Chase is a star, Joe Burrow.
What happens if you lose Higgins?
Yeah, but this is football. Like, there's more to there. Put it this way: Justin Jefferson's never won a playoff game. Like, you can be awesome on the outside and have all these weapons, but there's more to football than that. And this team on the lines of scrimmage, especially the O line. I mean, they have some.
I do like their D line. I like Trey Hendrickson, Sam Hubbard. They did get Sheldon Rankins this year.
Yep. So I like their D line, but it's more of it's that key, and part of it too is like keeping Joe Burrow upright and healthy is going to be key. Being able to run the ball. They lost Mixon, who I never thought was that great. Yeah. But like, what are you replacing him with? Are you going to be consistent enough? There's a lot of question marks about this team, and like I said, I mean, Cincinnati has never actually won the division in the same year where Lamar Jackson has been healthy.
Mm-hmm.
So as long as Jackson's healthy, Cincinnati is clearly
the second best
team, maybe. And I think you can make arguments for Cleveland possibly. We'll get to them in a second, but that's I think there's a clear tier break between Baltimore and Cincinnati. Baltimore's a Super Bowl contender. Like, they should have won it last year, to be honest with you. Like, them and San Francisco were the two best teams in the NFL last season. Yeah. Cincinnati, I don't see them being in that conversation. I think they need a lot to break their way. But in their defense, a lot broke against them last season, and I think Zach Taylor proved to us he's a good coach. I don't see the horses, because Baltimore's got a quarterback. Baltimore's got the coach. Baltimore's got the roster. Cincinnati's got the quarterback. Cincinnati's got the coach. I don't know if they have all the pieces on their team to stay with them. So that's kind of the way I'd put Cincinnati's. They are, the team I would probably I would want to compare Cincinnati to.
Historically or this year?
This year, I'll give you the NFC version. We talked about them last week. I kind of like them as the Rams. Like, I feel like
I had a feeling you were going to say that.
Yeah, because the Rams, I think, they have talent, no doubt, and they honestly, they've drafted probably even better than Cincinnati has. But a lot of their season will be contingent on quarterback staying healthy, and I think they need stuff to break right for them, or like they need stuff to go wrong for San Francisco in order to like make the jump into number one in the NFC West. Same thing goes here. I think Cincinnati's not winning the division if Baltimore stays at the level they are. They need Lamar to basically get hurt or decline massively to take that step and to the king of this division. Or Joe Burrow, maybe he plays out of his mind and wins the MVP. But we don't think he's that guy. We think he's just a very good, like, Justin Herbert and him are like the same guy. Like, they're just really good quarterbacks.
Yes.
But I don't think they're carrying mediocre rosters to Super Bowl levels. So next on, do you any more thoughts on Cincinnati before we change over to Cleveland?
No.
So Cleveland, I think this is the team we're going to disagree with on, because I would put Cleveland and Cincinnati. Like I think Cincinnati's a safer bet to be a wild card team.
Yeah.
I think Cleveland has a higher range of outcomes than the Bengals do, but also a lower floor, a lot lower than Cincinnati. And I think that's all due to their quarterback, Deshaun Watson. I like their coach, Kevin Stefanski. I love their defense. I think Jim Schwartz is one of the best defensive coordinators in the entire league. They, I would say, have the best defensive player in the football now that Aaron Donald is not on the Rams, Myles Garrett. Their roster is loaded. They have talent everywhere. They've kind of built like one of the sneaky best receiving cores in the league. In terms of like, they didn't give up any draft capital or money to acquire it, but you look on paper, it's like pretty damn good.
Yeah.
And Njoku's awesome too at tight end. Like, their offensive line is really solid. There's really, I mean, everything on this team shows you they won 11 games, and that was with like Joe Flacco, basically.
Yeah.
The question is, can Deshaun Watson, is it too late, or can he return to where he like was prior to 2021? I guess, like, are we going to get 2019 Deshaun Watson ever again?
Well, even 2020 Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, he put up huge numbers. The Texans just stunk that year.
They were terrible. I love their roster, top to bottom. But yeah, the question is Deshaun Watson. And I think he will look similar to what he did last year at times. Like, his best game was the game that he got injured, right? Ironically.
Yeah.
But
he was starting to play a little bit better too. That's like, he started to kind of take some steps. That was what was, if you're a Browns fan, most people hate Deshaun Watson, but like,
and I
was the
I hate him as a person, But
yeah, so that was the disappointing thing for him, though, is he was starting to make those strides into maybe, we might be getting what Deshaun Watson looked like prior to his whole like fallout with Houston, right? But we got to see it for a whole season, and at some point, it's like, are we really relying on something we saw 5 years ago to reappear?
Exactly.
How realistic is that? I don't think it's that realistic, but
no, I just don't think. I think what he'll be, he's more than likely going to continue being the quarterback that he's been most recently. And like last year, that was a below 40% success percentage as a quarterback, which is not a place you want to be in. You like, for a playoff team, for a playoff quarterback, you're expecting your quarterback to be around 44 or 45%. Below 40%, you're talking like Justin Fields range. You're talking, who's the kid in Tennessee? I'm very bad at remembering
Will
names.
Levis.
Will Levis was in that range last year. Another team that they put weapons around him, but unless he moves up in his own play, I think the question is similar, or is very the situation, I should say, is similar to Deshaun Watson. The only difference between, say, them and the Titans is this is just a much better team all around.
Yeah. They really don't have an out this year either. If he plays poorly, like, their next out is probably 2 years from now in 2026. They have $8 million in dead money if they cut him in 2026. But this is 2024, so we're probably getting 2 more years, no matter what,
years,
of Deshaun Watson. That being said, I'm a big, like you've probably learned over this process, I'm a big range of outcomes guy. I don't think it's going to happen, but in the case Deshaun Watson finds his form, he pulls who's an athlete that we've seen do this though, is like, who was like completely past his prime. I mean, I guess Joe Flacco technically like kind of came back like that, but in another
Joe
sport.
Flacco was kind of the same quarterback he always was, though. Like he was a high volume quarterback last year with Cleveland, and it just happened to work. Like they turned over the ball more than any team in football last
year. Yeah. They were very aggressive, though. So
very aggressive, and it fit their defense because their defense
could get the ball
beat
back.
teams. You could get the ball back. They actually did, ironically, for as good as they were terrible in the red zone for some reason.
Yeah,
I don't understand how that came to be.
I think with Watson though, if he can be anywhere close to where he was in 2020 or prior to that, I mean, and that was elite. If he can get anywhere close to that, this team is a Super Bowl contender. Like I could see them playing right up with Baltimore.
Well,
but
anywhere close to that, I mean,
it's not going to happen.
Yeah,
I don't.
Yeah,
like, I think if we're getting Deshaun Watson,
if he gets better, they're a playoff team.
Yeah, if we get, I'm trying to think of like a quarterback. Kurt Warner was
Jim
like the
Plunkett.
last. Kurt Warner did it where he was.
Kurt Warner, yeah.
He came back and like was a lead out of nowhere. It could happen. I'm gonna give it like a 10% chance that we get a Deshaun Watson and he was playing like an MVP level, like that good. I don't think that's gonna happen. Period. Yeah. But
and then you do have to think
this team is so talented, though. If he can play,
they might be due a little defensive regression at the same time.
And that's a fair argument to make. But I think a lot of their defensive production does come from, I think, having great players and a great coordinator. Just like we make the same argument for Kansas City, like, best defense in the league. But I mean, as long as you have Chris Jones and Steve Spagnuolo, I feel pretty good about your unit.
Yeah.
Would they go? They might go from number 2 to number 7. Like, I don't see this team just dropping off.
And then is Deshaun Watson going to be good enough to elevate that?
Yeah. Really, Deshaun Watson, like, to put it nicely, has played like shit since he's been in Cleveland. Like, that's the problem, is Joe Flacco comes in and played better than he did. The only reason why they didn't just roll with Joe Flacco this season is because they're paying Deshaun Watson.
Years old. And
Deshaun Watson's, you have to pay. Like, you can't afford not to play him.
They backed themselves into that hole.
You have no choice.
And their fans were clamoring to bring back Flacco.
Yeah. In a dynasty league, I traded for Deshaun Watson, and like I got one of my buddies ask me why, and I'm like, well, I know I get 2 years. Like, that's a longer leash than like almost outside of all the elite guys, right? Like Brock Purdy, Jordan Love, like those players, they get longer leashes than that because they've actually been good and they're going to get long-term deals themselves.
Yeah.
But like Daniel Jones, Will Levis, like those I'd rather take Deshaun Watson because at least I know next 2 years I got a starting quarterback. And there's that small like glimmer of hope that like we've seen this guy do it before, where he was one of the 5 best quarterbacks in the NFL at one point in his life.
Yeah. One other thing I do want to bring up about Cleveland that I think we'd be remiss to not bring up is they are battling a lot of injuries to starters right now.
Yeah.
They have, as it stands, 4 guys that are first-team starters on the PUP list at the moment, and they have another guy on the NFI list.
Yeah,
Greg Newsome.
Yeah.
So
that's a great question. Yeah, because they didn't have, outside of Nick Chubb, they didn't have a lot of those injuries.
Yes. Right now, both of their tackles, Jedrick Willis and Jack Conklin, are PUP list. Dalvin Tomlinson on defense is a PUP list. They got to get healthy, you know?
Yeah, because that's where the Ravens have an advantage of them. I think, like, starter-wise, if everyone's healthy, Cleveland's roster probably has as much talent as Baltimore's, but too deep at each position, I'm taking Baltimore. So I'm still going to pick Baltimore first in this division, but I think as it stands right now, I like the unknown ceiling of this team more than Cincinnati. So I think I'm going to probably end up taking Cleveland over Cincy, just because even though they're injured right now, I still like them better. But I think the injuries are a fair point, especially if guys like Wills up front, who are very productive starters, if they actually miss real significant time, that's going to be a problem. The one thing about Watson too, I think he's got to figure out how to utilize his mobility more. He did that a lot in Houston, and he's athletic. Last 2 years in Cleveland, I don't feel like it's there, and he was trying to play more like pocket style passing a lot, and I'm like, that's not Deshaun Watson's game. So I think he's got to find himself again. But I think you bring it up. How likely is he actually going to do that? I don't know, but I see this team, like I said, they could widest range of outcomes in the entire league. Honestly, I could see him win 6 games. I could see him going to the Super Bowl. To be honest with you, it's all over the place. So, any other thoughts on Cleveland before we move on?
Not at the moment.
Jacksonville's not in the AFC North. Steelers. There we go. Last team. I think you and I both agree this team definitely is probably the worst on paper in this division, right?
Probably.
Yeah. Not a lot I can't get excited about this. It's just it feels better than it's been, because I thought
they've just been boring the last 2 years. Really, ever since they got rid of the 3 killer bees, which they had to, things have been so boring with them. They're just not. They're not they're kind of like where the Steelers were. Probably you'd say the late 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah, I agree with
where they're at.
I agree with that. I feel like the Steelers, ever since that Week 17 game against, I guess, was it Cincinnati? Or no, it was against Cleveland in 2018, where they made Juju the offensive MVP or something.
Oh, yeah.
And AB had his meltdown. That started the CTE ESPN era of Twitter. But ever since that happened, the Steelers have not been the same, and I think that kind of coincided with Big Ben's physical downfall. He couldn't really throw the ball anymore after soon after that. They had a lot of retirements like Pouncey and some other defensive players like Cam Hayward. I think Cam Hayward's retired now, right?
Yes.
Or is he still with them?
I hope he's retired, because he's been playing forever.
Is he? I think he might still be playing. Let me look. I don't want to be wrong.
God damn it, he's
still playing. Yeah. But he's not the same player.
Dean Lowry's on the Steelers now.
Yeah. But they're all but they've kind of put Band-Aids, and they feel like the AFC version of the Saints, where I'm part of me just wants to yell at them, just rip it off. Stop trying to win the Super Bowl, because you're not going to with the team that you have. But I think the streak of the winning seasons, it's almost more important to them than just hitting a reset year.
Yeah.
And going and being another Steelers dynasty, which is what we end up with. What people don't realize is between Bill, when Big Ben was drafted, that's the highest the Steelers have drafted. Pretty much ever. It was in the, what was it, a top 12 pick when they got Big Ben?
Yeah, well, since everything started clicking for them, yeah.
Yeah.
It's the highest they've picked this millennium.
Yeah, going back to the 70s, early 70s, I would say.
Yeah.
But
the end of the Chuck Knowles era, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. But the Steelers have never been bad. And that's a good part of your culture, because that is kind of cool to say that you're always hunting for a playoff spot.
They're the Detroit Red Wings not anymore, but of the NFL.
And that's probably going to be frustrating. And I think I could see this with team winning 9 or 10 games again, which is kind of frustrating, but no more than that. They're not winning more than that. Like they're going to be exactly where they kind of were last year. I think they did upgrade quarterback. I'm not saying I love Russ that much, but I think that's more of an indictment on Kenny Pickett and Mason Rudolph. I mean, I like their defense. However, it just feels like I don't see a high-end outcome anywhere for this team. Like the high-end outcome is 10 wins. And the frustrating thing as a Steelers fan is you'll probably get that. Like Tomlin is such a good coach. He's going to manufacture 9 or 10 wins for this team. But you need a difference-making quarterback. You don't need Russell Wilson. They needed to go get like Michael Penix in this draft. That's what they needed to do.
And not even to call Michael Penix that, but you're trying something new, and you're at least giving yourself actually Russell Wilson is a cost-controlled quarterback at the moment.
Denver's paying him, not Pittsburgh.
But you needed a young guy. You needed a guy that you could try to mold into something else.
It's exciting. It's something
exciting. It's a new beginning.
If you're a Steeler fan, like, what are you excited for? Like, granted, you're not going to suck. That's great, right? Like, not every fan base can say that. Like, I don't think you have a lot of Giants fans that are super excited for football season. But this team, it's just we're treading water. But we know eventually, like, we're going to drown as we don't improve our quarterback situation. And I don't see – I'm not even criticizing because they're just – it's because the Saints, we know, could have done more to get in a better place. Like, they had a lot of easy contracts they could have cut, and they didn't. The Steelers are just kind of in a position, like, I just don't – they're in the worst purgatory in the league where it's just like they're – decent roster, but they're not going anywhere with it. I don't really know. Like, I don't really know what to add to this team. I think Russell's going to be fine. I think they might make the playoffs. Like, if things break right for them, but I don't feel awesome any other way. Like, that's the best I can come up with.
Yeah, as I said, they're just boring now. I mean, they do have some personalities on their team. But not like it was when they were winning. That was the difference. I just and
Russ is solid. Russ is going to be a solid quarterback for the next few years. He is not the quarterback he was like around 2017, 2018. He does not have the mobility that he used to have that made him so special. But last year kind of proved like he's serviceable. He can win you 9-10 games, maybe, like if everything kind of breaks right. But he's not anything past that. Because I think if he had stayed the starter in Denver maybe makes the playoffs. But like they would be the team that was gonna go into like Kansas City or Buffalo, which is what Pittsburgh ended up doing. And play the 2 seed and lose by 25. Like that's like that feels like where Russell is going to be the next few years.
And that doesn't feel like a playoff game when you're the 7th seed like that.
No. Mason Rudolph, and we had to wait till Monday for that game to be played. But that was like, I remember being like the most anticlimactic, like.
The fact that we waited that long and everybody's like, look at all the snow that's everywhere. And then it was like, wow.
I work for a CBS station in sales. And I remember we rolled out like, oh, what game are we getting? And I just remember looking at myself like, that's the game. Because I roll my eyes. I'm like, there's so many like the Fox gets Dallas, Green Bay. Like Peacock got Taylor Swift and the Chiefs. Like, and we love Taylor Swift. Like if you worked in television, you loved Taylor Swift and the Chiefs because like you're already getting the football audience, and then like the Swifties are going to watch too, so your numbers just go like way up. But going back to Steelers, nothing super exciting about this team. What it does though is it makes this division hard because they're not a walkover team. They're not the Giants. So when you're in this division, there's no easy game. So with that, I think it makes the race for the AFC North crown. You're going to have to sweep Pittsburgh to get there. I think, and Baltimore has actually had trouble doing that. If
Yeah,
there's
they got swept by Pittsburgh last year.
Yeah, Lamar played his worst game. Well, granted, the Week 18 game. Are we really counting that?
But technically they did.
Yeah, but the early in the season in September, I remember that game. Lamar played by far his worst game of the season against Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
There's something about this team, especially in division games, where they play their best.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe Russell Wilson gets some of that magic back that he had in Seattle, where like he could play horrible for 58 minutes, and then the last 2 minutes he just makes like 3 just beautiful dime throws, and they win the game. Like that could be like. I will say that could end up happening, and then maybe they outperform our expectations. But I think I'm being generous saying this team could win 10. I don't think anything past that, it would be kind of crazy. So let's go through the AFC North, Neil.
Okay.
Win total wise. So first in the AFC North,
I have Baltimore winning 12 games.
I have Baltimore between 11 to 13. So I'm kind of right in line with you.
Okay.
Second,
you have Cleveland second, right?
I do.
Okay. What do you? Wow. So you think they're gonna hit closer to their high end total?
Yeah, and in reality, like if I had to put a win total on paper, I put them neck and neck with the Bengals. But I'm gonna give them the tiebreaker because I like their ceiling more than Cincinnati's.
Okay.
But I have their win total anywhere between 7 and 12 games. By far the biggest range of any team, and that's all dependent on Deshaun Watson. But yeah, I could even see them winning this division. That's how strong I feel about Cleveland on the high side.
I have Cincinnati coming in second place. I am just a little bit more. I feel like I know what we're going to get out of Cincinnati.
Yeah.
They're not, as we said, they're not a division winner unless something happens to Jackson. They're not a contender for the AFC title, but I think they can win. I have them at 11 wins just by what their schedule looks like. It's going to be easier schedule.
They are playing a last place schedule.
They are. Yeah. So that helps. You get 3 last place teams,
which is crazy. They went 9-8 and they're playing a last place schedule.
Yes. And then
I got to give you my.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah, give me your Cincinnati.
So I have Cincinnati third place, and I'm doing 9. And I'm kind of like you, but it's just the opposite of Cleveland. I feel very confident about how I feel about Cincinnati. I think they're a 9 to 10 win team.
Okay.
I feel because to me, Joe Burrow and his consistency as a starter, I know what I'm getting, but I don't feel special. There's nothing special about the Bengals, in my opinion. I think they're just good. So 9 to 10 wins. I just don't. I think Cleveland on a good day is better than Cincinnati. But so you and I kind of agree. We're just ordering them differently, to be honest.
Yes. Yeah.
So.
Well, and the difference is how you think Cleveland. So like, whereas I think that's where maybe that extra win comes from for me, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. But I definitely agree with you. I think Cleveland definitely has the lower floor of both teams.
And then
so last place, or I guess you have Cleveland and Pittsburgh.
I have it tied for third or tied for last place, however you want to call it. I have the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Cleveland Browns. Sorry, Pittsburgh. The streak is over. 8-9.
That'd be so frustrating.
Well, that's it. They're not bad enough to go 5-12. They're just good enough to be. They're gonna if they don't win 8 games, they'll win 9 games. But
I'm gonna go bold prediction here. I think that this is going to be a season that I agree with you. I think the streak is broken. I'm not giving him 8 wins. I'm giving him 6. because
Justin Fields plays 10 games.
I think a lot of, and it's not even an indictment. I think they've been a little lucky the last few years. I think that luck breaks the other way. But I think they're going to be a 6-win team that like plays a lot of close games, but the close games don't break in their favor. Like they're going to lose twice to Baltimore. Like they're going to lose twice to Cleveland. And I think this might be the year we finally see a transition.
Yeah, it's that's kind of also the reason why I picked 8 and 9, because I feel like that would be the thing that would be like, okay, Tomlin. And if Mike Tomlin becomes a free agent in January, he will be the most sought after head coach.
I just don't like this team. Like there's nothing.
I don't either. It's just I like Tomlin enough to think that they'll probably win that many.
I kept and on the team preview side, I kept saying like, oh yeah, they'll probably win 8 games, 8, 9 games, and I'm like, but the only reason I'm saying that is because they're the Steelers. Yeah. But this is like at some point we have to just kind of recognize that they outperformed their win total last year and won 10. But that Mike Tomlin eventually you can't keep asking him to make chicken salad out of chicken, you know what? This team is old. They don't have a ton of talent. I hate their run game. I hate their O-line. I don't really like Arthur Smith as the offensive coordinator.
Oh, yeah, that's true. That was terrible.
Yeah. There's nothing to me. The only thing that I really feel like they upgraded it was Russell Wilson, but Russell Wilson doesn't inspire anything anymore.
He's just a Band-Aid at the moment.
He's Derek Carr. Like he's fine. Yeah. Like I think I'll defend Russ a little bit because I think people say he sucks, which is not true. I think that's stupid. I think he's way better than Justin Fields. I'll say that.
Yes.
But Russ also isn't. I don't think Russell Wilson's in a position to just cover up some of the shortcomings of this team. I'm just not a Steel. Like I don't know. And somebody's got to lose games in this division. Yes. Yeah. And we can't just keep picking 9 wins for every team. So Baltimore is so good. I'm going to pick the Steelers at 6 wins. I really don't like that team that much. But I could be totally wrong. I don't know. This is
11 losses would be their most losses in a season since, do you know when?
2003.
They went 6-10 that year.
Oh yeah, because 1989.
Wow, you were really close. 1988.
Okay, yeah, I was thinking the late 80s.
Chuck Noll.
They were pretty good in the
last
90s.
season. Yeah.
Because Chuck Noll, they kind of struggled towards the end of the late 80s. And I love how that's a struggling year for a franchise. It's like the Bears, that was like a good season for them 2 years ago.
We were delighted.
Yeah. But the Bears process has proven I guess we haven't proven it yet. But that's the argument for sometimes biting the bullet and just being freaking terrible for a few years.
Yeah. Well, as I said,
there's a lot of excitement around Chicago now.
It sucks for a year. It really does. And even last year stunk, but even last year stunk for the first 4 games. And then they were actually a pretty decent team for the last 3 months of the year.
Yeah. We'll talk about Chicago next week, but it seems like, that's a team where a lot of the young talent that you've accumulated suddenly started to bud. There's other ways too. Like the thing that annoyed me a bit about the Steelers is I get you don't want to lose games. Like no one ever wants to go any season where they win 3 games in a season. But the Packers also have that philosophy, but the Packers draft quarterbacks before they need them. So they don't have to go through the whole right. Yeah, they're not going through the transition. They never have to go get Russell Wilson or Derek Carr.
Yeah.
Or Matt Ryan when he's past his prime. They avoid those situations. And it is kind of funny. We'll talk about Packers and the Bears next week. But the Steelers, it just feels like they keep placing a Band-Aid instead of just really healing the actual problem. And the actual problem is they haven't had good quarterback play in like 4 years. And I guess they tried with Kenny Pickett and it didn't work. So I guess we can't claim they didn't
we
try.
can't say they didn't try. They just and they got out before it got even worse, which was
Kenny Pickett. But I'll say this about Pickett is he was the least inspiring first-round quarterback.
He was only inspiring to Pittsburgh because
he played at Pitt. But I'm like, if you love fifth-year breakout quarterbacks that played in like a mediocre college conference, and he didn't even like, was he a Heisman finalist or like barely won?
No, I don't even think that.
I think he might have been a finalist, maybe, but like that was the year Bryce Young won it, I believe. But like there just wasn't anything like. That's the thing about Pittsburgh. It's just like they're just fine.
So I have, my TV system that I am very proud of that I can get so many channels. So I can watch. So they won a Thursday night game last year, Pittsburgh.
It was against Cleveland, I think.
Cleveland, yes. And
wow, I remember that.
Yeah.
Horrible game.
Yeah, terrible game. But Pickett led like a last minute drive where he made like 2 throws. And the Steelers kicked a game-winning field goal or whatever. So I was pissed because I was rooting for the Steelers to lose simply because I knew like what Kenny Pickett winning meant to them, like that they were. And so I went because I can get any local network I want in the country. So I went to the Pittsburgh news broadcast after the game because I knew that there would be reaction. And the graphic on the screen said Kenny does it again, and they were talking about how the Steelers win these games because Kenny Pickett is just a Pittsburgh kid. I was like, what? It's just terrible TV, terrible analysis.
Yeah, this is the look I give when I read headlines like this. I just go like I just remember when they drafted Pickett, it was like, well, there's a first round. We got to have one first round quarterback. I'm like, if that is your like line, I never had the vibes from him. And I guess we were proven right because one of the things that I really didn't like about Pickett is actually when they traded or I guess signed Russell Wilson. And he didn't want to compete. Like he basically
he was only on the roster like the weekend later.
Yeah,
right?
they immediately traded him. He's like, you can trade me to Philly. I'm like, you're not going to start in Philly. Like you have a better chance of winning the job and like keeping Russell Wilson out. Like that to me was like, okay, this kid was never going to succeed because it's like, if you're afraid to compete with Russell Wilson and lose the job to him and you're willing to just accept that you're a bench player, it's like, why even play in the league?
Exactly.
Like get Tyson Bagent's ass in there. At least like Tyson Bagent. Yeah.
Tyson Bagent's going to throw for 200 yards tomorrow.
Yeah. That's true. We're going to see a lot of time. And to finish the show, we need to do a Hall of Fame. Is the game tomorrow or Thursday?
The game is tomorrow. Tomorrow is, oh, shoot.
Today's Tuesday.
I thought it was because we always do this on Wednesday lately. Yeah. So I was thinking it was tomorrow. Damn. Yeah. So it's 2 days from now.
Yeah, sorry, I threw you off.
Yeah,
but So tomorrow, y'all, we'll do a Hall of Fame game preview.
We're gonna have a 2-hour-long pregame show on Thursday before the game.
I do have a question: is Roschon Johnson over or under 45 rushing yards? Or is Khalil Herbert the number 2? I mean, I don't even know. It's going to be so exciting to figure out.
Yeah, because DeAndre Swift's not playing.
It's really for that bet, you would want to be betting on the number 3, not the number 2, because the number 2 doesn't really give very much work either. So, honestly, no one relevant's going to play in that game. It's going to be all guys at the end of the roster.
Yeah, for 60 minutes.
Do you remember a couple of years ago? We're rambling way past the time, but do you remember couple years ago when the Raiders were on the Hall of Fame game? And
yes, like 2 years ago.
Yeah, they gave like Josh Jacobs like 12 touches. And people were like, oh, Josh McDaniels must really not like Josh Jacobs. Like, fade him in every fantasy league you got. He finished, I believe, as the number 2 running back in fantasy football that year. So no one knows what the hell they're talking about. But yeah, but Josh McDaniels, obviously, like, he'll do random shit like that. But
yeah, exactly.
I don't know. But anyway, thank you for listening to today's episode of the Old Souls Football Podcast. Next week, we'll be doing the best division in the NFL, the team that has so many championships over the last 20 years, are the only division. Because we can't even get a team to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
But we're like the one division that can't get any teams to the Super Bowl.
But we have tradition.
We do.
2 of the teams have tradition.
And one of them's about to get rid of like playing outside, and they want to go play inside at some indoor
like, convention center.
They play Foo Cake Boy football in Chicago. Like there's only one team that would be still playing outside on grass in a few years, and that's really sad. But we'll preview the best division in football next week with the Packers, Bears, Lions, and I can't remember the other team. They're irrelevant anyway.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
All right. Take care, y'all.
Is that rolling?
No, I'm ending the stream, I think.